On August 31, 1988, a Boeing 727 operated by Delta Air Lines was conducting scheduled passenger flight 1141 on the route from Jackson to Dallas to Salt Lake City. On board were 108 people. The flight to Dallas proceeded without incident, except for one issue: the fuel quantity gauge for the number 1 main tank was inoperative. However, according to the airline's minimum equipment list, operating the aircraft with this fault was permitted. Upon arrival in Dallas, a mechanic reviewed the aircraft's logbook and confirmed that the malfunction did not hinder further operation of the plane. The aircraft was prepared for the next leg of its route, and the crew began pre-flight checks. During taxiing to the runway, the crew started all 3 engines. However, due to a departure delay, the captain shut down the right engine to save fuel. Before takeoff, when the aircraft was already queued for departure, the engine was restarted, and the crew continued their preparations for takeoff. A tragic takeoff. The initial phase of takeoff proceeded normally, but shortly after liftoff, there were 2 loud bangs, resembling explosions. The aircraft jolted, and the pilots felt as if the engines had gone into reverse thrust. The Boeing 727 began an uncontrolled roll to the right, and the pilots were unable to regain control. Witnesses on the ground observed the aircraft climbing at a steep angle before it began to lose stability and descend. During the descent, the wings vibrated, and the aircraft struck a localizer antenna before crashing into the ground, disintegrating, and catching fire. The flight lasted only 22 seconds from liftoff to impact. The crash resulted in the deaths of 13 people, 12 passengers and 2 flight attendants. One passenger, who initially survived the impact, returned to the burning cabin to help his wife and others but sustained fatal burns and died 11 days later. Causes of the crash. The investigation revealed that one of the primary causes of the crash was the failure to configure the flaps and slats correctly for takeoff. The flaps should have been set to 15 degrees, but they were retracted, significantly reducing the lift needed for takeoff. The Boeing 727 was equipped with a takeoff configuration warning system, designed to alert the crew if the engines were advanced to takeoff power while the flaps and slats were not properly configured. However, in this case, the system failed to activate due to a malfunction. Human factors. The cockpit voice recorder revealed that a senior flight attendant was in the cockpit before takeoff, engaging the crew in non-operational conversations, violating the sterile cockpit rule. This rule prohibits unnecessary discussions during critical phases of flight, including taxiing, takeoff, and landing, up to 10,000 feet altitude. The conversations distracted the pilots, causing them to skip certain items on the pre-flight checklist, including verifying the wing's takeoff configuration. The first officer erroneously reported that the flaps were set, even though they were not. Findings of the investigation. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, concluded that the crash resulted from the crew's lack of discipline, as they attempted to take off with the flaps and slats improperly configured. A contributing factor was the malfunction of the takeoff configuration warning system, which failed to alert the crew to their mistake. The investigation also highlighted deficiencies within Delta Air Lines itself. The airline had been slow to implement necessary updates to procedures, training methods, and crew verification processes. This likely contributed to the lack of discipline among pilots. Conclusion. The Delta Air Lines Flight 1141 crash served as a painful reminder of the importance of strict adherence to rules and procedures in aviation. It demonstrated how even small mistakes or lapses in attention can lead to tragic consequences. Following this incident, Delta Air Lines and other operators revised their crew training standards, pre-flight procedures, and maintenance protocols to prevent similar accidents in the future. This disaster underscores the critical need for professionalism and focus in aviation. It serves as a lesson to the entire industry about the catastrophic potential of complacency and human error, reinforcing the importance of safety, vigilance, and accountability at every stage of flight operations. The Delta Airlines Flight 1141 crash serves as a stark reminder of how human factors and systemic issues can lead to tragedy, even when the technical condition of the aircraft is sufficient for safe flight. The primary causes of this accident were not only the crew's errors but also organizational shortcomings within the airline, including weak procedural oversight and a lack of cockpit discipline. This disaster reminded the aviation community that safety rules and standards exist not as formalities but as essential measures to prevent such tragedies. Any deviation from these standards, whether unnecessary conversations in the cockpit, insufficiently thorough checklist reviews, or technical malfunctions, can become a fatal link in a chain of events. The victims of this crash paid the ultimate price for mistakes that could have been avoided. Their memory should serve as a powerful reminder to everyone in aviation that human life is the highest priority, and ensuring safety must be paramount at every stage of flight operations. Following the NTSB's investigation, Delta Airlines implemented significant changes to its internal procedures. The airline strengthened adherence to the sterile cockpit rule, improved pre-takeoff checklists, and conducted additional training for flight crews to prevent similar mistakes in the future. The crash of Flight 1141 is another sobering reminder that aviation is a field where precision and professionalism determine not just the success of a flight but the lives of many people. It is crucial that the lessons from this event are never forgotten and that they drive the development of a robust safety culture across the entire aviation industry.